Lazada, your one-stop shopping destination. Add to cart. With 10 out of 10 in quality.
On Lazmall.
Wait, there's more. Wow, and it's 10 out of 10 in assortment.
Hello everyone. You know, some footballers enjoy a rainy day. Not sure fans always feel that way, but an exciting match in prospect nonetheless. My name's Derek Ray, and joining me for commentary on this game is the former Arsenal and England fullback Lee Dixon. And we're ready to bring you live action from Liga MX. It's Club Tijuana versus Mazatlan FC.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. Lovely to be here. I can't wait for this one. A nice quick tempo from both sides will be ideal for me. Let's hope we get that. Should be a great game.
Well, you never quite know who's going to emerge from the shadows and become a match winner, but this man might be a decent shout. Lee, what are you expecting from him?
Well, he's added goals to his wizardry. Will he get another goal today in his last match?
Well, here is the lineup for the hosts today. The emphasis very much on the positive, Lee.
Yeah, very much so. A narrow three in midfield with a number 10 supporting the two main strikers. A back four spread across the pitch. The fullbacks need to supply the width, but they also need to worry about defensively as well.
This is how the visitors will set up today. It looks pretty orthodoxly.
Yeah, I love this formation, 4-4-2. The two main strikers will stay close together. The full-backs will link up with the wide players. The two holding midfielders will sit in front of the centre-backs. Very solid look about this team.
And now they get the ball rolling. Esteban Paves. Fidel Martinez. Can they get in behind them? And tidily played. Well, he likes to run at them. Patient enough build-up. Can they carve out a chance? Good strength to keep the ball. Can they take the lead here? Well, it was straight at the keeper, but technically good goalkeeping. Mario Osuna. Jimenez. Rangel. Camilo. Luis Mendoza. A really committed challenge, and it's gone out for a throw-in. And continues his run. Now he must favour the cross. Looks promising, this. Thou shalt not pass, was the message delivered. Esteban Paves. On the ball, Angulo. Martinez. Manotas with it. Mastery of the passing game. Able to get his body in the way. Throw-ins given. Reyes. Osuna. Ortiz. And Camilo with it. Lovely ball over the top. Well, he stumped it out of there without much fuss. It might be on for them. Mario Osuna. Could play it in. Camilo. And smart defending. Martinez. Manotas with it. The attack continues. They're making considerable progress. Moving the ball nicely, looking for that final pass. Can they forge ahead? They do! And you've got to say they're good value for the lead.
Well, here's the goal again, and it's a great ball to put him through. And once he gets himself settled with the keeper to beat, he hammers it into the back of the net. Smashing goal.
The opening goal of the game then. Reyes. Well, they've lost possession of the ball. Mario Osuna. Still behind, but the pressure mounting. Mendoza. Reyes on the ball. Can he find the net? Well, not the easiest of saves, but you'd expect him to stop it. Not a corner here, and that might boost their hopes. And firing it into the area. Great chance with that header, but he sent it wide of the post.
Well, it's quite easy to head that one over the bar. This time he just gets his angles wrong, just past the post.
One minute of stoppage time has been added on. Esteban Paves. And with that, the first half draws to a close. He's been the standout for his side so far, don't you think, Lee?
Well, Derek, you're right. He has played well, and goals win games. He's been a joy to watch in this form. Sit back and enjoy him in the second half.
And now they get the ball.
Start selling online with Shopify, the e-commerce platform that's trusted by over 1 million businesses worldwide. Build your online store without any coding or design experience. Reach more customers with Shopify's social media and marketplace integrations. Instantly accept all major payment methods. Grow your business online with powerful tools that help you find customers, drive.
The two teams have switched around and are ready now for the second half. So a throw in here. Brian Angulo. Gonzalo Jara. Happy just to retain the ball in their own half and draw out the opposition. Martinez. Manotas with it. Difficult to stop him. Well, it didn't happen for them in attack. He's protecting it effectively. Esteban Paves. And slipped through beautifully. Playing with purpose and control. But strong play as he keeps the ball in anticipation of support arriving. Just the clearance that was needed. And 30 minutes left for play in this match. Reyes. Mario Osuna. And Camilo with it. Sandoval. Osuna. Well read to ease the pressure. Martinez. Throw-ins given. And a substitution in the offing. Jimenez. On the ball, Angulo. Esteban Paves. And a throw-in forthcoming. Intercepting it intelligently. Gael Sandoval. Ruiz. Well, is it going to end up being productive for them? He could pick out a teammate. Esteban Paves. Not too fussy in clearing his lines. Breaking at pace. Ground to make up, and perhaps this corner can assist them. Well, they've been getting the substitute ready, and now they will make the personnel change. Over it comes. It had an invitation attached, but he couldn't avail himself of the opportunity.
Well, just look at him. He thinks it's in, just wide.
Ruiz. It's with Paves. Brian Angulo.
Well, the crowd have reacted to this effort the players are putting in. They just need to keep their concentration and the game should be theirs.
Well, the ball lost here. And it's a case of just 5 minutes left. Esteban Paves. Decent progress with the ball at his feet. David Barbona. Well, visionary passing. It's gone in! And well, he might celebrate on the back of that.
Well, as we see from the replay, the keeper's got no chance. It's all about the strike, all about the power. He does everything right, head down, back of the net.
Well, the goal again, albeit from a different angle. So 2-0 now. Well, the electronic board showing 3 additional minutes. Diaz. Millar. Israel Jimenez. Gael Sandoval. The referee blows for full time. It ends in a victory for the home team. No complaints from the fans here.
Yeah, fairly comfortable in the end, wasn't it? Thought they controlled the middle of the park for most of the game. And going forward, there was some really lovely play too. Good result that was.
Well, his performance in this particular game will have impressed many people, Lee.
Well, that was a really, really good performance from the lad, and a goal to boot. Really delighted with that goal, I'm sure he is.
I made my switch to full manual controls exactly 1 year ago, and it led to what is easily the most profound change in how I got to enjoy this game. If you're looking at this and wondering why the ball in my game seems to follow a more realistic trajectory than most PES footage out there, I'll let you know right now it's not because of any gameplay PC mods, which I never use by the way. It really is all about the use of full manual controls, and the realistically unlimited possibilities of goal scoring opportunities that it offers. There's also a certain satisfaction in releasing your players with a manual pass into space, which is something you can only do with manual controls, especially if you follow it with some of the new finesse dribbling or PES's subtle skills as you try to get past the excellent keepers in the game. Being able to manually pass anywhere into spaces behind defenders and getting your manual shot blocked without shooting assistance contributes to a form of natural organic chaos, where you see your players react to a manual pass that can land anywhere before ending up somewhere you weren't even planning. And the way these manual crosses can now land anywhere around the player, who's able to target anywhere in the goal, brings out these beautiful animations you rarely see with assisted controls. And the same improvement in animations is seen with passing, where the engine will have to dig out rarely used animations to release the ball anytime, even during a body feint, at any power and into any direction. This is something even console gamers can experience on the vanilla game by just turning off pass and shooting assists, and persisting through the learning curve. And there is a learning curve, no doubt. This is how I used to shoot when I first tried manual controls. Just give it time, and before long, you'll be able to pick out your players with manual passes to their feet, or into a space they're running into. That said, yes, it's been 9 months since PES 2021 came out, and aside from how comfortable I've become playing with full manual controls, a big reason why this year's game has been easily my most played PES yet is the insane level of maturity the PC mods have reached on Fox Engine. And the modded game looks so good that there is a possibility that next-gen PES won't look as good as a fully modded PES 2021 on PC. I mean, just look at it. To get a better idea of how wildly upgraded the game looks with PC mods, this here is how the game looks by default. The lighting is horrible, the grass looks yellow for some reason, and the broadcast cameras are uneditable. While on PC, I'm playing in the Santiago Bernabeu, one of over 600 modded stadiums from EvoWeb's forums that were added to the game, and I'm using Jeremiah's incredible turf mod, which he made from scratch this time, to match every individual real-life stadium's pattern and color on TV, with custom-made nighttime lighting for each stadium, as well as proper sunlight where you can actively see the dynamic exposure increase as you move from the sunlit into the shaded parts of the pitch, or the other way around when you move from the shade into a bright part of the pitch. And you can see shadows realistically become darker as you move away from them. These mods come with small touches like the correct scoreboards and TV logos, as well as big universal changes like Jeremiah's foggy weather mod, which I love because it not only looks more realistic, but also even the slightest bit of fog smoothens any graphical imperfections the way anti-aliasing would. Now I understand why Konami couldn't add more stadiums, because those need licenses, which they don't own, but there really is no excuse for the developers screwing up unlicensed things like grass, lighting, cameras, and the weather. I already spoke about all these beautiful PC mods in another video, which I'll link in the description. But even while I've been making this video, Jeremiah's been able to mod the default clothes that crowds put on, which used to be previously uneditable, replacing the default inappropriately colorful Hawaiian attire during winter games in England with the dark jackets most people wear in real life that time of the year. But enough about the graphics. I mean, nobody plays PES because of its graphics, no matter how good they are with mods. And I will be incredibly disappointed if the PES developing team has spent the last 3 years of next-gen PES development only trying to make the game photorealistic, which in the age of AI and machine learning neural networks can be achieved with a push of a button. I mean, check out this AI neural network which can replace all the textures and models, even the flat ones in any video game, with photorealistic real-life textures and 3D models with a single command. And it actually works in real time, available today for GTA 5 with no extra rendering time required. What PES developers should have been doing these past 3 years is work on what they have been doing best this past decade, which is gameplay. Make no mistake, we are all playing PES and not FIFA because of the vastly superior gameplay, which mimics a sport nicknamed by Pelé as the beautiful game, compared to whatever EA's football-themed cards game has to offer, which is a far cry from the realistic organic gameplay experience PES has been offering for decades now. Now at its core, the on-pitch experience of any football title is about offense and defense, and the way you're able to switch between the two, which relies heavily on realistic off-ball tactical player movement, which might actually be the biggest differentiator in PES compared to FIFA's lifeless players. And then of course there's your player's movement on the ball, otherwise known as dribbling, and I'll include the role of skills with that category. Then there's the all too important manual passing of the ball around, which is how you should be realistically building up play in a decent football game to get the ball moving from one end to the other. As they say, the ball moves faster than the player, and this is the mechanic you'll be using to create all those shooting opportunities. And of course, I'll be talking about the very tricky but super rewarding manual shooting mechanics, as well as the role ball physics play in them. While defense will be about the way goalkeepers in the game react to attempts on target, as well as player awareness or lack thereof to where the ball is, and the location of other players on your team. But mainly, we'll be talking about the way defenders move off and on the ball, which most times is up there among the weakest points of the game. And it's the reason why most online formations look like this, so long balls can exploit this weakness in defender awareness. And this weakness is the reason I'm able, even with the challenge of full manual controls, to score a goal like that, which by the way is the fastest goal I've ever scored in a PES game. Speaking of online, I'll talk about what this horrible thing is, and what Konami can do to stop it from killing its online experience. And of course there's the referee and the horrible collisions, which are in dire need for a brand new engine, which is coincidentally what we're getting next year. So I have my fingers crossed for that long awaited fix. And we'll end the review with free kicks, which are beautiful with plenty of room for improvement. I'll leave timestamps in the description so we can jump to a certain tip or segment after you're done watching, because this will be a long video. And it's actually sponsored by the OneFootball app, which is easily the best way to get on top of the new season's transfers, and it actually makes a huge difference when all the football news I get are from the teams I'm most interested in. And it's the kind of small news that you'd have to dig for in other outlets that aren't specifically created for you. You can use the link in the description to get the free app. Let's kick off this review with manual passing and shooting. Full manual controls, or FUMA, means that you, the player, get to choose the exact direction and power of every action you perform in the game. Not only was I surprised by how quickly I got over the steep learning curve, but I immediately realized how I was now able to pass into empty spaces and have my players move to the ball. And you're no longer restricted by the direction of the receiver's run. You just pass into a space and your player will turn to move towards the ball. But it's more than just passing into spaces. When you start getting good at it, you'll be able to put just enough distance and weight into your manual pass so it reaches your player's feet in stride without slowing him down, making it easier to burst past the defender without having to deal directly with him. The play variety and possibilities introduced by full manual controls made it possible to build play using real-life tactics, where you actually pass into spaces through gaps in defense to find the goal. You see, on full manual, the game's engine won't help you avoid defenders blocking your pass. So as in real life, I found myself aiming through these gaps to send my players on efficient runs, beating several defenders en route to goal. And I'm talking about runs that can only be exploited using a manually placed and powered pass behind defense, in situations where an assisted pass would easily get intercepted early on in the play. There really was no turning back from manual passing, seeing how much more efficient passing into space was compared to assisted passing. This also made me more patient with my build-up, as I tried to find a gap through defense, then try to find another gap on target before shooting. And the better I got with my aim, the tighter the gaps I manually exploited got, leading to more goal-scoring opportunities. And while it's always better to manually pass through a gap into the direction of the player's run for a smoother build-up, passing into gaps is actually helped by the fact that your receiving players will move towards the space you push the ball into, compared to how your assisted passes relied on where they were already moving. And the applications can be as subtle as this example. Kai is moving inwards towards the center, but my manual pass pushes him to the side where he has a better chance of penetrating the defense on his dominant foot. And Isco here is moving to the center, but the pass trajectory is blocked by these players. So I just manually pass it into the space behind them, and he moves to collect it. Then he spots a space on the radar on the other end and moves the ball there. Speaking of the radar, it is absolutely essential in order to find your players running behind defense. So yes, with manual passing you get to indirectly move your players by passing into spaces without being restricted by the direction of player runs, and when you cut inside, you can pass into the space behind defenders and hope one of your players moves to the ball to finish it off. I'm also always asked if there was a difference between using the through pass and normal pass button with manual controls, and my answer used to be that there was none, but in one of Ricky's videos on the True Brits channel, he kept saying how using the through pass button produces a smoother pass that glides a lot better on the pitch, compared to the more bumpy and turbulent normal pass. And having paid more attention to the bumpiness of normal passing, I very much agree with what he said. I mean, it still no longer matters what setting you use for through passes, whether it's basic or advanced, when you've turned off passing assists, but I definitely noticed a smoother trajectory for my manual crosses when using the through pass button. I mean, look at how much air gets under this low cross using the standard pass button, and compared to this much smoother pass using the through button instead. I mean, when I use the pass button, it's almost as high as an actual lofted cross, but the ball stays on the ground when I'm using the through button instead. But regardless which button you use, I've noticed that players with good ball control will move towards your manual pass the second you start putting in the command. Let's rewind again, and I want you to notice how quickly Isco backtracks to get to the ball earlier. This ability to pull in a player with a short manual pass comes in handy in the final third. In this example, Vinicius Jr. is bombing down the right side and is pointing where he wants the ball. The defender also seems to be running in that direction to block his attempt. But watch how I make a short manual pass towards the center, which yanks Vinicius off his predetermined path as he wrong-foots his mark and finishes it off. The same thing happens here, but with a long manual pass into space, which allows Robertson to build up momentum into his run, which he uses to push past Kenny. And it's those kind of physics that I really love about PES compared to FIFA. Players all have weight and carry momentum into their runs, which you can use to your advantage. Like watch how João Moutinho is running towards Robbo to block the left flank he usually runs into, but because my manual pass landed at Robbo's feet instead of in front of him, I'm able to make him move inwards into the pitch and move past João Moutinho, whose momentum in the opposite direction slows down his recovery, and from there I pull in Mane with a short manual pass to the center where he has room to finish it off. Let me actually rewind this for a quick detour. Did anyone notice Diogo's run that pulls in a defender to open up space for Mane? You simply do not see these kinds of realistic runs in FIFA. On the other hand, this defender inexplicably leaves Mane, and I'll talk about that later in this review. Now back to moving players with manual passing. Trent only starts to move when I pass into the space ahead of him. Then he pulls Firmino closer with another pass, who pulls Mane out with another manual pass. Now we might think that Mane's shot never had a chance, but that's only true with assisted shooting, because with manual shooting, there's always hope that you'll get the aim right and score from a difficult angle. And ever since I came to this realization, I started taking shots from angles I never would have dared attempt before switching to manual controls, like this header from an impossible angle. And that was particularly true when aiming towards the near post, which used to always be a guaranteed way to get a corner on assisted shooting, unlike of course with manual controls, where there was always hope you can score from anywhere. So yeah, these tight near-post angle goals were extremely rare on assisted shooting, but the beauty in PES is that when it feels like the right time to take a shot, it usually is. For instance here, my run is slowed down by a defender, so the ball rolls a little further away from me, making it perfectly primed for a shot. And if there's one reason why I would never go back to assisted shooting, it's definitely the ability to score long-range screamers with full manual controls. In all my years of playing with assists, I wouldn't even waste time trying to score from a straight shot from that far out, because with manual controls, there's always hope that you'd get the angle and power just right to get into that top bin, especially if you're already dribbling with the ball, which creates a better frame of reference to get your aim right. And I'll talk about that later. Another incredibly realistic thing about long-range manual shooting in PES, which I'll dive deeper into when I talk about keepers, has to do with the fact they have a real line of sight, which influences their ability to respond to a shot. Without shooting assists, the game will allow you to shoot into any direction, even if there are players blocking the keeper's ability to see the shot being taken. Like the way the keeper doesn't have time to properly react to this manual rocket Kai unleashed through the defender's legs straight down the middle. And because you'll start taking more long rangers with manual shooting, oftentimes there will be enough time for these blocking players to get out of the way, leaving the keeper facing a shot he didn't have time to prepare for, leading to some realistically awkward outcomes. Now of course player stats play a huge role in manual controls. For instance, long-range shooting and rising shot traits will keep the ball level provided that you make the precisely correct power and aim selections. And players with a dipping trait will take the manual shot in a manner that brings its trajectory down into the net. But again, that lovely dipping trait won't mean anything if your manual aim is off. And it's the same thing with manual passing. I mean yes, you're still the one required to have an eye out for your player runs, and to properly place your manual pass on the correct side towards your player's dominant foot. And yes, you're the one who still needs to choose the proper timing of releasing the manual pass to make more room for the receiver on the other end. For instance, Abraham could have laid it off immediately, but he instead turns and makes the better pass into space behind the defender for Ziyech to run into. And because of how much control I had over the weight and direction of my passes, I started thinking several steps ahead. Like here, I could have passed the ball earlier, but I hold off till both my winger and my striker are in position to pull this off. And yes, you're also the one responsible for aiming your manual pass, whether it's into a space ahead of your player or precisely through defense to his feet, so he'd use his momentum to burst past the defender en route to goal. And you also need to know how far you want to push the ball to give a faster player enough room to get ahead of his mark. Like over here, Salah needs a manual pass that just gives him enough room to beat Thiago Silva before touching the ball. I mean, imagine how much more rewarding these goals feel when you get it all right. And finally, your body position in relation to the ball is another variable you need to control, especially when attempting a long manual drive. In this example, I want to deliver the ball all the way to James there, but the ball is too close to Marcos Alonso, so even though I've selected maximum power for the pass, he doesn't have enough room to adjust and deliver it using his stronger left foot, and he doesn't have enough room to run into the pass, so he ends up just poking it with his foot. On the other hand, for this play, I held the sprint button, so the ball rolls further ahead as he turns, giving him room for a brief run into a long drive with a stronger foot. And that's another thing to take into consideration. Marcus might have the long-range drive and the long ball expert traits, but he doesn't have good weaker foot usage. So when his body position forces him into a weaker foot long manual drive, he won't be able to correct the direction of your pass with an inside-out swerve towards his target, and the ball will instead always drift away to the inside. He'll still be able to pull off many beautiful switches of play with his weaker foot, but they just won't curl to the outside, which he doesn't need in this instance. Now compare that to a long drive by his stronger left foot, as he pulls off this beautiful inside-out spin that he adds to my manual input into this pass. Trent, on the other hand, has better weaker foot usage, and also has the outside curler trait, which enables him to add the appropriate spin even on his weaker foot with long manual drives forward. This brings me to the common misconception out there. Player traits and attributes actually do make a huge difference in the outcome of your manual passes. For instance, Thiago has 92 low passing, 89 curl, and therefore has a through passing trait and an outside curler trait, and is a long ball expert. And because of that, he inspires players around him to run into spaces and expect passes into their runs. So look how these traits come together when he adds this perfect outside curler correction into this manual through pass to Diogo behind United's defense. Now compare that to Dele Alli, who doesn't have any of these traits, so his manual through pass doesn't receive any special swerving correction and gets intercepted. And I love this one. Hakim Ziyech has 90 lofted passing, 85 curl, as well as through passing, weighted pass, pinpoint crossing, and outside curler traits. In this example, I kind of overpower my long pass into space ahead of Hudson-Odoi, but look at how Hakim corrects it by channeling this extra power into more height, while adding a backspin to keep the ball in play so it actually slows down when it lands. And as in real life, thanks to the inspired trait that I'll explore more when talking about off-ball movement and runs, other players are inspired to make far runs into space when a good passer with the inspired trait takes control of the ball. In this example, Timo is just casually jogging around. But once the cursor moves to Ziyech, who inspires these kinds of runs in other players, you clearly see Timo's run suddenly pick up pace as he makes a run up the pitch. And even though I slightly overpowered my long manual pass, Ziyech adds a backspin, so it lands in a way that allows Timo to chest it down in stride and have an open path to goal. Now compare that to Zuma's switch of play without having any of these traits. Instead of applying an outside-in spin to correct the direction of the long ball, it just swerves away, making Chilwell backtrack to receive it. And you're not just limited by traits, you're also realistically limited by the amount of power each player is able to put into a long drive. For instance, Thiago Silva has a kicking power of only 76, so even with a full power bar, his long ball barely makes it past the center circle. And there are no corrections for a manual pass that you didn't put enough power into. And that's the beauty of manual controls. It's rewarding because regardless of the player you control, it's still you who has to find your players and make the proper direction and power choices, including how to receive the ball and disperse of it. For instance, Hazard here applies just the right amount of spin to your manual pass to reach Benzema behind the defense. But Salah's curler gets blocked because I simply didn't aim it well enough. Same for Genie's curler manual pass, I just didn't push it forward enough. This outside curling pass only happens with players who have the proper traits, and only when it needs to correct the trajectory of the manual pass you made. Like here with Hazard, I make all the right choices in terms of power and direction of my manual pass, and there's no defender blocking the trajectory, so it doesn't get triggered in this particular situation. But it's not as reliable a mechanic as I'd love it to be. For instance here, Modric pulls off an outsider curler pass, but Asensio, who also has the trait, doesn't do it when I really needed them to. So 100% yes, even with full manual controls, having better players on your teams will lead to all the subtle real-life advantages of having these players with pretty much any play, provided you make the right power and aim selections. The same influence of player attributes comes into play for one of the most challenging manual plays ever, crossing into the box. With manual controls, you can actually cross from anywhere on the pitch, no matter how deep into the pitch you are. Player traits make a massive difference when it comes to manual crossing. The pinpoint crossing trait makes it swerve in a way that maximizes the chance of finding one of your players behind the defender. This curl in the ball's trajectory is usually what keeps it from reaching the defender first. Like this is what a straight cross would look like without the pinpoint crossing trait. But even with this trait, it's still up to you to apply the correct power and aim with full manual controls. And you still need to aim the cross according to your player's curl stats. For instance, with only a curl ability of 70, even with a pinpoint crossing trait, Mendy's cross won't magically swerve back into the path of your strikers. Lucas Vazquez, for example, doesn't have the pinpoint trait, or enough curl to make him a good attacking fullback in the game. And if you apply too much power when manually crossing with a pinpoint crosser, I found that he'll translate this extra power into giving the cross more height so that it still lands around your target in the box. I also definitely recommend almost always holding L1 when crossing to pull off a lofted cross when your player has the pinpoint crossing trait. It keeps the ball pleasantly level for your striker to find it mid-air. Although with good technique, I was able to find Mane here with just a normal cross without any special crossing traits. The difference is, you still need the pinpoint crossing trait to whip it in with this massive swerve. And similar to shooting, it's always better from a physics standpoint to cross a ball that was moving back towards the crosser. So yes, player stats and traits have many subtle effects on the outcome of your manual plays, unlike what I thought for all those last years playing with assists. But they're just as subtle as they need to be, and it's ultimately up to you whether you end up hitting the target even when shooting with a player like Modric. And after you've done the correct choices when passing the ball around, when you do score, it's mostly because it was you who estimated the correct degree of analog stick tilt needed for a shot. And when you miss, it was mostly because you were either too subtle with your aim or a little too generous with the analog stick. But the keyword here is you, and not the game's assistants, are the one whose skill will determine a big part of the outcome of your play. And I'll tell you now, it is way less frustrating when you pull off many beautiful manual passes during build-up only for you and not the game engine to screw up when you take your shot. Sure, the attributes of the players you control will also play a significant role in determining the outcome of each play, but having that much control over every single move you pull off using full manual controls leads to not only the most realistic looking gameplay I've ever enjoyed, but the most rewarding feeling after every goal I've manually guided into the net. I mean, the reason free kicks are so satisfying to score is mainly because of how much control you're given over the exact aim and power of your shot. I'll talk about free kicks at the end of this review, but they're an excellent example of a full manual shot that even assisted players have been taking for years. It's just an easier version of manual shooting because the ball isn't moving and you have a ton of time to figure out your aim, power, and curl before taking the shot. But when you score a free kick, you still know that it was all about your exact input without any assists from the engine. But what makes open play manual shooting even better is the accurate realistic physics variables that govern the moving ball's behavior. Like when your player runs, he's actually building up momentum that contributes to the power of your shot. In this example, Kroos fills the power bar even more than Modric, but he's shooting from a standing position with no momentum built up, resulting in a weaker shot. Now, if you fill up the power bar too much, especially when adding in a running momentum, your ball will skid over the bar. It's best to think of the power bar as a height bar. The less you fill it up, the lower your aim. Using Giroud's weaker foot produces a similar effect with a slightly full power bar, and the more you fill it up, the higher your shot, especially on your stronger foot. Now add a running momentum behind a weaker foot shot with 80% power and you'll struggle to hit the target. Now of course a player like Messi will be able to keep it level with a running momentum on a stronger foot, even if you generously fill up the power bar. The accurate ball physics come into play when you're shooting into the opposite direction of the ball's movement. The combined forces of the ball rebounding in addition to the force of the shot itself results in a much more powerful shot without even having to fill the power bar. It's actually the best way to take a shot with players who don't have particularly good shooting stats, as they won't need to generate the full force of the shot on their own. It also results in a smoother, more level shot on target. But when hitting a ball rolling back to you, it's important to choose the proper phase in its bounce to hit it. So these are the phases of a dropping ball when you should try to take your shot in order to get a proper dip, with a tight half volley being the most difficult but most rewarding. Generally speaking, the best phase to hit the ball is when it's dropping into its next bounce. For instance, even though Henderson is a long ranger with the rising shot trait that keeps his shot level, he takes the shot way too late after it rises from its bounce, so it flies into the stands. As a rule, if you see the bounce had just happened, it's usually too late, because it means you're taking the ball while it's rising from the bounce. The closer you hit it after the bounce, the lower its trajectory. So you actually want to hit the ball right as it touches the ground. Now the next two half volleys are hit at the same phase of the bounce, but the big difference between both is the direction the cross was coming from. In the first example, Asensio receives a ball coming from the side. It makes a very brief bounce and flies over the crossbar. On the other hand, Firmino hits this half volley with the exact same brief bounce, but the cross he receives was moving back away from the goal. And what a difference that makes in keeping it level. Now if you miss that moment as it touches the ground, you want to wait till the ball starts dropping into the next bounce to get it to dip. Players with better shooting stats will still be able to get over a high ball rising from its bounce, but hitting a dropping ball remains to be the best way to get a dip on your shot. The flatter the drop, the less dip you get. And the ball physics are so realistic that you get maximum dip if you hit the ball at the lowest point of a steep drop. And the higher the drop, the better the dip. It's not surprising given how much better the ball physics have always been in PES compared to FIFA. You can see the way the ball acquires a new spin when colliding with any object like a post, and that spin will realistically influence its trajectory. And the amount of spin the ball acquires depends on the angle it meets said object. I can make a whole video about the way the ball swerves off the post in PES. Even the pole holding the net in place has accurate physics in PES. And look at how this collision spins the ball and pushes it back to Robertson when it lands. Or how this powerful shot slides off Courtois' gloves and the new spin makes it skid forward when it bounces. Now if you're wondering how I'm scoring all these full manual goals while shifting between many different broadcast cameras that are quite challenging to play with, well I'm about to dish out all my tips and secrets, as this might be my last video for quite some time. First of all, it doesn't really matter which broadcast camera I'm using, because manual shooting is all about creating a frame of reference before taking your aim on target. For instance, if I'm moving my player in X angle using my current analog stick position, then I can estimate roughly how much I need to move the stick to produce a shot through Y angle. The longer you spend moving in a certain direction, the easier it is to calculate the change you need when aiming your shot. It's a lot harder to produce a small subtle change in the direction you're pointing the analog stick at, which is what happens when you approach the goal from the dead center. And this is why long-range shots are a lot harder to score than close-range shots, which is quite realistic. You see, from long range, making a small change from your dribble direction to your aim direction produces a big change the more the distance the ball needs to travel en route to goal. And subtle changes in direction are a lot harder to pull off with the analog stick than the big changes in direction required the closer you get to the goal. In this example, I know the direction I'm dribbling into. Using this as the frame of reference, I can estimate how much I need to change it in order to aim to the far post, which is a bigger and therefore easier change because I kept moving away towards the near post. This is why I'll also do my best to try to avoid hitting the ball from the dead center, because from there, you need a very subtle change in your aim to hit the sides of the goal. Because again, the more subtle the change, the more difficult it is to pull off, especially if the player shooting doesn't get enough